Welcome to the final day of the Sierra Club's Earth Week of Action. Today we are focused on International Workers' Day. Our theme here is There's Work to be Done. Here we have developed a suite of materials and activities that share the context behind why building back better with labor unions matters as we pursue the achievable goal of building a livable planet for everyone. I'm your host, Derek Figures, Labor and Economic Justice Director at the Sierra Club. Let me start by saying thank you for joining us as we showcase some of the incredible and difficult work that my colleagues here at the Sierra Club and in the labor movement are involved in. Some of the Sierra Club's most important work comes from working in coalition with our partners, many of which are labor unions, in identifying and creating meaningful and tangible solutions to these challenges. Right now, we are joined by my colleague, Rachel Lyons. Rachel has been with the United Food and Commercial Workers since 2017 and leads the union's federal and state legislative strategy on issues ranging from agriculture, trade, immigration, labor standards, cannabis, and pensions. Prior to joining UFCW, Rachel was responsible for coordinating federal education and advocacy on workplace policies, including paid sick days, paid family and medical leave, and fair scheduling at the National Partnership for Women and Families. Rachel also has extensive experience on political campaigns in key states across the country. Welcome, Rachel.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
So glad to have you. So let's kind of jump into some of these questions that I had I wanted to ask you around labor law reform. Because as we talk about Build Back Better, we have to include labor law reform just because of the massive amounts of jobs that will be available to workers, particularly workers we hope are interested in joining unions. So from your organization's perspective, where do we begin our economic recovery towards a cleaner climate where all communities can thrive? And what role does labor law reform play in making this into a reality?
Thank you, Derek. It's a great question. For us at UFCW, labor law reform, a cleaner climate means good wages and good jobs, right? So as long as workers have the chance to band together and fight for good workplaces, they will also fight for healthy workplaces and safe workplaces. And that is just the continuum of labor law reform for us. We are the union that was part of the effort to organize Amazon in Alabama. And there we can see how the rules are stacked against workers, right? It was nearly impossible to defeat the power of the company or to for all the workers to get what they wanted. And what they wanted was safer workplaces. They wanted, better wages, which they were getting, but they wanted, more importantly, that clean and safe workplace. And so I think that's where environmental and labor unions really meet in goals, is when workers are empowered, they're empowered to create clean workplaces.
That's helpful. And also, I forgot to just kind of start by asking, can you give us a little bit of insight in terms of the types of workers UFCW represents?
Yeah, this is the elevator pitch. We are 1.3 million members. We're the largest private sector union in the country. We're most well known as a grocery store union. So we represent your Kroger and Albertsons in your neighborhood. We also represent nearly 200,000 meat processing workers. Those folks are on the line processing beef, poultry, swine, and a little catfish. We are in healthcare as well, representing home health aides and nursing home workers. And we are also the largest union in cannabis and represent the emerging cannabis industry.
Interesting. And I guess, a lot of folks may not be aware that when we talk about frontline workers, UFCW represents almost the lion's share of frontline workers, aside from, some of the folks that are represented at AFSCME and AFT and some of these, where we have teachers and sanitation workers and folks that kind of perform essential services like groceries, like food safety and health issues that are a major concern. So I think that's great. I'm happy that you guys are representing folks there, because it's important to kind of force labor law reform, or at least advocate for labor law reform issues related to the health and safety of workers on the front lines.
I mean, our workers have been working this entire pandemic. I didn't even do my pandemic line. We are frontline essential workers, where whole industries lost their jobs. Our folks kept working. We have unfortunately lost 452 members have died during the pandemic, and nearly 90,000 have been quarantined or impacted by the pandemic. So that safety message, the health, how do we do public health together? How do we ensure a safe and clean workplace is more acute for our workers these days than ever before.
Yeah, that's really sad. I'm really sorry to hear about the workers who lost their lives and to their families. So my heart, and I'm sure many of my Sierra Club colleagues' heart goes out to those families. Very sorry about that. Another question I had was related to just kind of, can you share with me what it means to be a labor union member, right? What does it mean to the average American worker? I mean, I think for the average American worker in the space that you represent workers was probably a little more accurate.
Yeah. It means a voice on the job and better wages at its most basic level. Retail work isn't very well paid, right? And the premium, the union advantage that comes with working in a union grocery store versus a non-union grocery store is significant. To be able to negotiate for better wages, to have health care from the day you start, to have fair schedules, to have a control over your schedule is a big thing for our members. Because they are working hourly and ensuring that they can get those schedules in advance and learn is all something that's negotiated in our contract. And it became even more acute during the pandemic to have your union fighting for your safety and ensuring that we weren't going to go back into the stores without safety measures and protocols or into the plants without some measures and of safety and concern for that. So really that voice, that banding together, is what I hear from the members the most, that both, we're really thankful for the benefits, but they also like the solidarity that comes from it, from knowing that you're in it together with someone else.
That sounds a lot like a lot of the benefits of the Proact.
Yeah, so interesting.
Segue into that a little bit and see where UFCW stands on the Proact since I've taken it upon myself to push Proact as much as possible.
Right. The Proact is, UFCW is a strong endorser and supporter of the Proact because the scales have become unbalanced between employers and employees. Everybody should have a choice to join a union, but they should also be able to learn what the true benefits are. And right now, as we saw in Alabama, it's very hard to break through and talk to workers. And so the Proact would balance those scales and ensure that bad employers who are trying to game the system and prevent workers from forming a union get actually punished for it. We never see that. It's just like they never see any blowback from that. And then also ensuring that the structure is more fair. So one of the issues that really is impacting the retail sector is something we call misclassification, right? The idea that all of these workers out there, independent contractors, making their own decisions with their employers, Uber, Instacart, there are whole industries that are sprouting up to where the employer takes no care of their workforce, right? And we need to be clear who is truly an independent contractor, actors, writers, right? Folks who are truly choosing their jobs and can negotiate versus Instacart workers who have no control over their time. So Proact gets at all of these things, right? It's a labor law reform bill, so it's not the sexiest, but what it would do is would change the way we work. Yeah. And make sure that we have this voice and that unions remain strong in this country.
No, that's a very good point, especially on the misclassification issue, because I know that was an issue a long time ago with a lot of FedEx workers or FedEx drivers, because they typically drive their own trucks or they, rent them out and lease them out and use them for the time that they're working. And it becomes, it's a way of shifting liability. So I appreciate you raising that. And and also raising the fact that some of these folks on the front lines are Instacart drivers, or some of these folks who deliver groceries for us, and they're literally putting their lives on the line, and without any type of supports in terms of healthcare and things like that. One other question I wanted to ask, and then I'll kind of leave it to you. And it's around kind of gender equity, racial equity in terms of labor reform. Can you share some of the specific benefits that labor unions afford women and communities of color? I thought this might be a fitting question just because of some of your past work at Partnership for Women and Families. And if I'm not mistaken, UFCW represents a ton of women as well.
Right. We're nearly 50% female union, right? We are about 40% people of color. The service sector is made up of women and people of color and immigrants. And when you have a voice on the job, when you have a union, you have higher wages. And that means you can support your family on that job. You are more participant in the community. And so the union advantage for women and people of color has been long documented, but we see it in our own union in terms of the actual benefit of wages, but also the leadership, right? People move up. There's an opportunity to learn new skills, to move up. We offer free college through the union. We offer a language class. There is all of this skill, and we offer trainings and apprenticeship programs. So all of this enables people, our membership, which is so diverse, to gain skills and move up and make these, what a union does is make it a job, not a dead-end job, right? The union makes grocery store clerks a job that you can support a family on anywhere in the country, even in an urban, expensive area. And so that's one of the things. And then because we're such a large, with people support families, we always support family-friendly policies, right? So these policies like fair scheduling ensure that people can balance childcare and go and work, can find a way that they're not constantly away from their families. They can have paid sick days to take time off to take their kids to school and not worry about losing their job. They have paid family leave. We're working towards that. So I think we saw that came up again, pandemic, right? The sudden need for us to all ensure that we had the time off to deal with this crisis. Right. And with all the childcare centers closing, people suddenly had to figure out how to take care, still go to work, they're essential workers, and care for their kids. And so the benefits that were negotiated in the union contract protected them and gave them the power to say, like, look, I just need to, they shut down all the childcare in my city. I need a day to figure this out. Right. And that's what your union does for you. It makes it, you have that on the same playing field, that even playing field, that ability to negotiate with your employer and know that you got the union at your back. And that has trickled down to better wages for our members and better for all the workers, of color in our union.
That's fantastic. I guess one last question. This is not necessarily a curveball, but I am interested in I'm interested in the immigration piece in terms of, what it means to the labor movement. I mean, I know you and I worked alongside each other over the years, maybe a decade at this point.
I know, jeez.
But not to age ourselves, but
I know we've held up so well.
But there's significant impacts that immigration reform would have for the labor movement. And I'd be curious, just from my experience, witnessing some of the work that UFCW was involved in, and some of the raids, and raids of food processing plants in particular states like Mississippi, I recall, and some other states as well. Do you have any just kind of anecdotal thoughts around what immigration reform would mean as for the labor movement, just broadly, not so much specifically?
Yeah, I mean, in a narrow thing, we have in our membership like nearly 15,000 members who are on temporary protective status. It's one of the many visa categories. And one of the things the union does for you is help protect that category. They mostly work in meat processing, people from El Salvador, Guatemala, Haiti, and their countries are too dangerous to go back to.
Right.
Right. They got this status by virtue of the fact that while they were here, an earthquake happened back home, and or civil unrest, and they can't go home. They've built families. So the union fights to ensure that they can continue to stay, gives them advice. So I think that's another union advantage. And I think the whole labor movement is made stronger by immigrant workers. I mean, UFCW was founded by German and Polish immigrants working in the stockyards in Chicago. Immigration and immigrant workers are at the heart of labor. We've always welcomed it. Then there was turnover in the UFCW when Black workers from the South came to the stockyards. And again, they just rolled them in. Maybe a little conflict at the beginning. Let's be honest, it wasn't as smooth as it sounds.
It's like that.
But
somebody said it though. Just look, so you got to put it out there. You got to put it out there. It was never an outright ban. But tension. But the diversity in the union, by nature of our industries and by nature, there is a real culture of welcoming, right? So once you become a member of the labor union, no matter where you come from, we fight for you. And that's the thing, is in every plant and every raid and everything that happens, the union, we send lawyers, we send staff, we send money to help you cover childcare if you got swept up in a raid. And so we have always been there to protect the members of the union, and we will continue to, whether that's through direct service or through trying to create an immigration policy that reflects the economic needs of the nation, not this one-off, a industry needs more visas because they think they can't get enough workers to pick crabs. Like, we really think comprehensive immigration reform, where we think about it in terms of economic need. We, try to train people up into those jobs and then protect the people who are in this and have made our nation so rich. So I think we have, complicated. Immigration is complicated, but it's also very simple for us in terms of, if you are a member of our union, we want, we're going to figure out a way to support you. That's fantastic. And thanks for that answer and being able to kind of pivot, in the middle of, because it's, you and I both know immigration really well just because of your past. I led you to it by putting immigration in my bio. Yes. We might throw a little immigration question in here just to kind of mix it up a little bit. Well, look, Rachel, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to speak with you about this about labor law reform and climate, and why climate and labor have to work together towards building back better. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you so much for inviting me. And thanks for Sierra Club for thinking about this nexus. Like, it is so important. And we're glad to be partnering.
Thank you. All right. Well, look, Rachel, have a good one. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay.